Let's talk a little bit about the adhesives themselves.
Okay. We have here, actually...
What do you think of that idea, Ken?
We haven't even talked about these yet.
I know.
Okay,
well, these are okay, we'll just go.
We'll stick with this.
Those all look like they're exactly the same.
Well, I'm not saying anything. These right here actually represent 3 different manufacturers. I should say 3 different wholesalers.
Okay.
There are actually only just a couple manufacturers of adhesive in North America.
Is that right?
Most people don't know that.
Okay.
And most products are packaged. Actually, if I hold these like this, most everybody would sit there and say, oh my goodness, they look the same.
Right.
These were all packaged by Mixpack. Really, often the variation...
They're not packaged by Mixpack. These are Mixpack cartridges.
Mixpack cartridges, yes,
right.
I apologize.
But they're not packaged by Mixpack.
Different packagers.
Right, exactly.
This is all part of the Mixpack delivery system. But often, and as you know, I used to work with a manufacturer.
Right.
A lot of people will buy adhesive from the adhesive manufacturer, and they will take and they will put on a label.
Right.
And they will market it as their own.
And that's called private labeling.
That is correct.
Right, which is fine.
There's nothing wrong with
right.
it. We actually sell, as you can see, different versions of the private label. And I'm trying to be careful here.
Right, absolutely.
As you can see, I have my thumb carefully
right.
put over the name of this company. But these products really don't vary that much. They in essence...
But do they actually vary? I mean, like, do they have, like, different manufacturers have their different formulation of the glue that makes them believe that they have one that's better, or...
To a degree, there are very subtle differences. Some glues are more opaque than others, which means they're flatter looking, and that would certainly be desirable with an acrylic,
okay.
because acrylics tend to be more opaque, whereas a lot of the polyesters you see on the market, or polyester hybrids, have more depth.
Okay.
So then you might want to be looking for an adhesive that might have a little bit more transparent quality to it, that would let some of the color come through and really jump for you. So as far as glues, I mean, I can only tell you what I did when I had a shop. I would often use whatever glue I had, as long as it color matched with my material. But that was my own.
Okay.
thing.
Speaking of color match, what if you wanted to maybe make a different color with the adhesive?
That's certainly very possible, and I'm glad you.
And you can do it yourself.
You could.
Okay.
There are times, and I'm actually going to use this one right here. There are times when, as a fabricator, you either have to do a repair, and I'm very concerned we're going to run out of time here, so we may.
Well, we've got 3
segment.
minutes here, so why don't we? If you just talk a little bit quicker, we've got 5 minutes. Okay, we got 5. You got plenty of time, Ken.
I'm nervous, though. You know how it is. I'm going to put this tube in backwards because the only thing I want to get out of here is the adhesive. I don't want to get the activator.
Why is that?
Because if I ran the activator through a cartridge tip and, let's say, put it into a vessel like this, the problem I would have is the glue would be immediately beginning to set. The work time on your glue is anywhere from roughly 5 to 7 minutes. Most fabricators don't realize that. They think they can work with the material for 10, 12, 15 minutes.
Right.
It's really not the case. Working time for your joint adhesive is 5 to 7 minutes. So always bear that in mind when you're working with it. But by bringing it out this way, the benefit is I can bring it right out into this cartridge, or I mean out of this cartridge into this.
Mm-hmm.
And let me get that off of there. I'll let you hold that like that because we don't want that to
Thanks,
leak
Ken.
all over.
Give me something to do here.
That's it. But what I want to show you is today I brought some pigment. And we used to, when I had our shop, sometimes if we were doing inlays, or more importantly, if I had to do a repair and I was very concerned about how well that glue looked like the feel of the material, we could actually take and begin to color it. And by coloring it, all it would take would be a little bit of DuPont Auto Paint pigment is what I used to use.
Okay.
But there are a lot of different paint pigments out there. And what a lot of people don't realize is the glue manufacturers, to get these colors right here, that's pigmented. This is pigmented white.
Just like paint.
Exactly. Pigment is added to joint adhesive to make a color. But I can, by the same principle, I can take, I've got just a little bit of red pigment on here, and I can add this to joint adhesive.
Look at that. You just had a little dab on there.
Just the very end of the
so if you wanted to do an inlay for a customer, you could actually work up the color right for the customer till they say, that's exactly what I want.
Exactly, and and that's really what we did.
That's really cool.
And there's that's a nice, really a salmon.
Yeah.
That's a pretty salmon color right there. And that took just a little bit of the pigment. Now I also have...
Now you would have to mix that back with the hardener.
Correct.
And what ratio would you mix it? 10 to 1?
Exactly. What you would do is, you really want to pay attention to how much you poured out of here. Mm-hmm. And then when you flip this cartridge back around, you could dry the same amount of
Well, now let me
out.
ask you this. If you squirted it out in 2 cups, mm-hmm. you would actually have the mix, wouldn't you?
Yeah, and you can divide it just like that if you happen to have the 2 cups. You just got to make sure that they don't accidentally mix because
they're going to... Yeah.
That would be a problem. Now I have another little bit that I shot out, and I wanted to show you something else. Okay.
Let me hold that for you, Ken.
Well, that's the kind of guy you are. Right here I have, and I got very little of this, but it will still illustrate a point. That is just a little bit of yellow. And I don't know how well you can see it on screen. Hopefully you can see it. But that little tiny bit of yellow I scraped off that side wall.
So you need very little.
Exactly. That's a big point.
Could you use anything else other than pigment? Like could you use like an oil paint or anything that's in a tube or anything like that?
No, you want to use just pigment. Because you don't want to introduce really what would be the equivalent of a foreign item to it. Because if you do, you're actually altering the adhesive then.
All right.
And then you're running into a problem.
Look at how yellow that came out with just a little dab.
And I've got this, because I want you to see this, and I think it'll really become apparent here. I have here, you see how little that is?
Right.
I don't know if the camera can get that. That is just a little bit on my toothpick, and I'm going to take and watch me just run a little stripe through this. Look at that. See what it did? Look at that.
Yep.
And they begin to mix it. Now the important thing I wanted you to see here is what I did now, and I may have kind of blown it here. Hopefully I didn't. But you remember what the first one was we mixed up, John?
The salmon or the yellow?
What was the first color we mixed up?
The first color was this red with the salmon.
That's right. I want to make a point here real quick.
Oh, you've actually kind of made the same color.
That's right. I wanted to show you that.
That's going back to school with primary colors and art and what have you.
Now,
but we've got a break to commercial here. So
but you can see if I added a little bit more of my maroon to this, then I could actually make these colors identical. I came pretty close just by a little guess. So that goes to show you the important thing, guys, is what you really want to make sure that you do is when you start mixing anything for an inlay, or even if you're kind of custom coloring for a field for a repair, you really want to make sure you pay attention to your formula and kind of record what you do, because that way you can reproduce it over and over, and that's an important feature.
All right.